let's talk about Miyabi. So Miyabi's kit has many different aspects to it, all of which make her incredibly broken. There's all these different mechanics and buffs, and they can all get really confusing, but it's very worthwhile if you understand them. So I'll break them all down in a simple way. First off, let's talk about her anomaly reaction. So Miyabi's main anomaly reaction is what is called Frostburn Break. This reaction is great for many reasons, but one is that it is quickly triggered on enemies. This occurs as when Miyabi attacks enemies, they'll have ice fire applied to them, and this basically causes them to take an increased amount of frost buildup, causing frostburn quicker. Miyabi's frost buildup is furthered by her amount of crit rate up to a max of 80%, so crit rate is very important for her. Now on top of Frostburn, Miyabi can still trigger other ice anomaly reactions like Freeze and Shatter, albeit special versions of them, but Frostburn Break is the best of her reactions. When triggered, it'll deal huge amounts of damage to enemies. Though Frostburn Break is also beneficial to the rest of your team, as enemies dealt with Frostburn Break will be in the Frostburn state, which enables your entire team to have increased anomaly buildup, so triggering the other reactions your team is capable of, like Disorder and various other reactions, will be easy and improved with Miyabi. In addition to these benefits, Frostburn Break is important as it enables a key aspect of Miyabi's kit. Upon triggering Frostburn Break, Miyabi will gain a point of Fallen Frost. These points are important as with them, Miyabi can perform her very strong Shimotsuki stance attack. The way you perform this attack is first having 2 Fallen Frost points and then holding her basic attack. However, this attack becomes even more broken with its different levels. If you just hold the attack button and let it go, it'll be level 1. Yet if you have extra Fallen Frost points and continue to hold the attack button, the level of the attack will increase as indicated by the flashes that emit from Miyabi. There are 2 additional levels to this attack, with each level consuming more Fallen Frost points, but likewise increasing its damage. At max level, the scaling of this attack is basically that of an ultimate. It is incredibly high and thus something you want to do. And thankfully, you can use the level 3 attack quite often as there's many different ways to gain Fallen Frost points. One is with Miyabi's special attack, which real quick is an attack that causes Miyabi to close in on enemies and attack them. The AoE of this attack is also huge, so it'll be very easy to fight multiple enemies at once. If Miyabi has extra energy, you can tap the special attack button again to perform extra slashes. But regardless if you use her basic special attack or the EX special version, Miyabi will gain these points. Next up is her ultimate. This is a broken ability as not only does it deal an absurd amount of damage to enemies, it also grants 3 Fallen Frost points as well as buffs Miyabi's damage a great amount, as her ultimate grants a 30% frost damage increase for 12 seconds. Last but not least is her additional ability. Now this is an ability you absolutely want to take advantage of. Off the get-go, it significantly increases Miyabi's Shimotsuki damage by a crazy 60%. Then Miyabi will gain 2 Fallen Frost points when her team triggers Disorder, which again, given the anomaly build-up buff Miyabi will give to her team, Disorders will be very easy to do. And then on top of all this, her Shimotsuki stance will ignore 30% of the enemy's ice resistance. With all this in mind, when you're leveling her up, as always, level up her core skills to the max, then level her basic attacks, and then next prioritize her ultimate and special attack. Lastly, while optional, but you do well to have them leveled up a bit, there's her dodge attacks and assist attacks. Let's get into the best engines to use on Miyabi. Ranking in at number 1 is her signature engine, and this engine is actually quite unique. As you can tell by its substat and passive, this engine has a lot of crit, which make building Miyabi a lot easier and buffs her various attacks a significant amount. The engine also has a buff to ice damage, so to no surprise, it is amazing on Miyabi, but if you do get this engine, know that because of its crit, it's not going to be particularly good on other anomaly units, so this engine is basically only usable on Miyabi. Next up for second place is the Fusion Compiler, and this engine can be quite a good substitute for Miyabi's signature, as while it doesn't have crit, it has very useful stats like pen ratio and attack for Miyabi's personal damage, as well as anomaly proficiency to increase Miyabi's Frostburn Break damage. Other than this, you can use the other S-rank anomaly engines like that of the Flamemaker Shaker or Jane's signature engine. Of course, these engines won't perfectly cater towards Miyabi's kit, but still they're good for their high attack and anomaly proficiency. Onto A rank engines, generally the best A rank engine is going to be the Electro Lip Gloss. This is a really good option, as when enemies are inflicted with anomaly reactions, of which Miyabi will easily and constantly do, the user will gain an attack increase and have a damage increase to those affected by the reaction. These two things are really good, so it's an engine you really cannot go wrong with. Similar to this is the Roaring Ride. Upon using an EX special attack, the engine will give multiple effects like an attack, anomaly proficiency, or build-up increase. Yet, this is all random, so it's possible for you to get the weaker of the stats, which is the anomaly build-up increase, so while this engine is actually quite good, its performance will vary. Then comes the Weeping Gemini, which improves Miyabi's personal and reaction damage. This engine, though below the other A rank options, is still a very good engine to use, so feel free to use it if you have it. Now the engines I've mentioned are the best to use on Miyabi, but if you don't have them or can't use them, while weaker you can use the Forest Gourmet or any of the B rank anomaly engines. Now let's cover Miyabi's best drive discs. First with their sets, the overall best set is gonna be the new Branch and Blade Song. It's the best set to use, as off rip it buffs crit damage, which is great since Miyabi will already have tons of crit rate to max out her passive, so crit damage is very important. Then for the 4-piece, it further increases the user's crit damage by 30%, so already in total you're getting 46% crit damage. This only occurs when Miyabi's Anomaly Mastery is at least 115, and this shouldn't be too hard to do. Now, if this wasn't enough, when Freeze or Shatter is dealt, which Miyabi will definitely do, a 12% buff of crit rate will be given to her, and as we went over, crit rate is very important to Miyabi, as this plays directly into her core skill. So this set plays perfectly into Miyabi's playstyle, it makes building her a lot easier, and buffs her DPS a very significant amount. So this set is really the only one you should use, but if you can't, or if you're working towards getting this set, you can make use of 4 Polar Metal, which increases ice damage, which, although it doesn't specifically say frost damage, this still should count towards Miyabi, as she is still technically an ice unit. Anyhow, the set also buffs her normal attack damage by a nice 40%, and although this is no 46% crit damage, it's definitely a buff Miyabi can make use of. Then there's 4 Woodpecker Electro, Hormone Punk, or 4 Freedom Blues, which honestly is a bit of a copium set to use, since she doesn't need the increased anomaly buildup and it purely focuses on her reaction damage than her great basic and special attacks. It'd be best to give this to a support. In tandem with these sets, you can equip any 2-piece that has crit rate or crit damage, attack, pen ratio from Puffer Electro is also great, as is anomaly proficiency. You can also just mix and match the 2 pieces of any of 3 sets I've mentioned if you'd like. As for the specific main stats within these sets, use either a crit rate or crit damage 4th disc slot. Anomaly proficiency is also usable, but I would vouch for either crit since her non-reaction damage is quite important. Then have an ice damage, attack percentage, or pen ratio 5th slot. And finally, attack percentage for the 6th slot. I'd advise against Anomaly Mastery since Miyabi should already have high anomaly buildup because of her kit. Concerning substats, aim for either crits, but if you've already reached 80% crit rate, focus more so on damage. Also try to get attack and then anomaly proficiency. Now let's quickly go over Miyabi's Mindscapes. Beginning with her first, every point of Fallen Frost will have her Shimotsuki attack ignore 6% of the enemy's defense. Then if her Shimotsuki attack is charged to level 3 and hits an enemy under Frostburn, your team's anomaly buildup rate increases by 20%. For her second, her basic attack and counter damage increases by 30%. She also gains Fallen Frost points upon entering a battle and when she performs her 5th basic attack. Her crit rate is also increased by 15%, meaning more crit damage and less of a required crit rate to max out her passive. Her 4th Mindscape improves her Frostbreak reaction damage by improving its damage and the amount of decibel it grants to Miyabi. Finally is her 6th, which furthers her Shimotsuki attack by 30%, and as Miyabi is charging this attack, at each level she'll dish out a slash to enemies. Now I personally don't recommend getting her Mindscape since she's already so strong, but if you want to, I'd recommend getting her first, and if you still want to improve her, then also her 2nd, but definitely stopping there. Last and definitely not least, here are some great teams to play Miyabi in. The first and likely her best team is going to be a Disorder team with Yanagi. So recall that it'll be quite easy for Miyabi to perform Frost Break. This creates the perfect opportunity for Yanagi to be switched on field and spam her special disorders, which both deal high damage and give Miyabi Fallen Frost points. Miyabi is further improved in this team since Yanagi will activate Miyabi's broken additional ability, increasing her DPS by a ton. Aside from Yanagi, you can really use any other anomaly unit, the best of which is Bernice. For the third teammate, you can use any unit that buffs Miyabi, and the second anomaly unit you'll be playing alongside her. The best is Caesar for her shielding and her damage buffs, or Rina to purely focus on damage and buff the two's pen ratio. Nicole is a good replacement for Rina. Now, it's also worth mentioning that while Disorder is of course beneficial for Miyabi, she's not completely locked to it since there are other ways for her to get her Frost points. And as such, you can use non-Disorder teams like Miyabi with Tsukaku and Lighter. Tsukaku is great as she's an amazing free-to-play option for Miyabi. She'll trigger her additional ability and massively buff Miyabi's attacks, so her personal damage will be very nice. Then Lighter here is to stun enemies, so Miyabi can make use of the 150% damage increase, and as well as Lighter's decreased ice resistance. Other than Lighter, Lycon is a great alternative. Well everyone, this is my Miyabi guide. If you guys enjoyed, please consider liking and subscribing, and be sure to ask me any questions you have on her in the comments. Also check out my Lycon Arena guide to best prepare them for her. Thanks for watching, and take care.